So, Professor Lee?
Yep.
Hi.
Hi. Hi, everyone.
Ladies and gentlemen, this is the Junior Fellows presentation session, and this will be chaired by my colleague, Professor Jason Lee at the Korea University. So I'd like to hand over this microphone to Professor Lee. Professor Lee,
thank
please.
You, Professor. Yep. Yeah. Thank you, Professor Park, and indeed, very nice to meet you, and also very glad to moderate this SPEAC Junior Fellow session. Okay, so one of the objective of running this collaborative research project is actually breeding the next generation researchers who will build a solid connectivity between Europe and Asia. So I think this SPEAC Junior Fellows meeting is also very valuable, and I do appreciate the warm participation of the student, junior researcher from both Europe and Asia. So in this session, we have three presenters. David Alenga from Norwegian University of Science and Technology, and An Jin-hoon at Korea University, KU-GSIS, and also Senior External Relations Officer at ASEAN Korea Center, and Diana Schnell, the Research Associate and PhD candidate at Ruhr University of Bochum. So we have 1 hour for this Junior Fellows session, and we have 3 presenters, and we will receive the question from webinar chatting. So I would suggest a 15-minute presentation per each presenter, and then we will have 15-minute Q&A. Okay, so shall we start from David Alenga? Well, this is a very interesting theme of Eurasian Pipeline Connection, a case study of the power of Siberia and Nord Stream 2. Well, we especially the latter, well, which will be the hot potato between Russia, EU, and the United States. So, David, the floor is yours.
Yeah. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay. Let me share my slide here. Share my screen.
Still, the screen has not been shared.
Has not been shared. Yeah, you cannot. Okay, let me try it again. Okay. I think I have it here.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
Yeah. Okay. Yes. A very good morning to everyone, and it's a great pleasure to be sharing my research work with you. It's an ongoing piece of work, and I'll be very excited to get your feedback and see how much I can further develop it. And this particular topic is actually part of my ongoing research on energy infrastructure. And my specialty is particularly within the Eurasian region, where I look at Russia and its energy policies across the region. And I found this as an opportunity to challenge myself to look at one aspect of it, which is a new part, the new projects, which is the power of Siberia. So I actually thought this was a good basis to look at the issue on the Parakana's thesis about connectography, where he argues that the new basis for understanding the world's geopolitical and economic governance systems is through infrastructure. So we have a different sense. It's no longer a question about looking at understanding the world from a traditional political sense. We have to begin to look at how the world is governed through infrastructure. And so I found that to be an interesting basis upon which to start my analysis. And one of the things, I'm just quoting him directly, he says, new energy discoveries and innovations have eliminated the need for resource wars. Global financial assets are being deployed to build productive infrastructure that can reduce inequality. And he further says that beneath the chaos of the world that appears to be falling apart, is a new foundation of connectivity pulling it together. And I found it particularly interesting, the last quote in particular, given that in the last several years, especially given Russia's geopolitical situation and Euro-Russian relations haven't been really very good, but then we still see infrastructure projects going on. And I thought this might be a very good basis to launch a study of this kind. So I have chosen to look at the power of Siberia, make a case study of the power of Siberia and Nord Stream 2. Both are pipelines that are designed to carry natural gas from Russia to Germany and by extension to the wider European gas market. And the second one is the power of Siberia, which is a very new project designed to carry natural gas, Russian natural gas, to the Chinese market for the first time in one of the most ambitious attempts at energy diversification that's taken place in recent years. And beneath all of it, I have a couple of overarching research questions that has been guiding my work on this particular paper. So first, the question I'm looking at, can Russian gas pipelines be the link in a new Eurasian cartography, a new Eurasian map, understand how infrastructure shapes, connects one part of Europe to Asia based on energy infrastructure links. So first, it's an attempt at political geography, understanding political geography, and in that sense, understanding geoeconomics. And in terms of the links with political geography, next question then comes in, whether this new cartography have an impact on political behavior. And if a close observer of recent geopolitical activities would understand, the biggest concern has been with Russia's perceived political behavior in the last, especially beginning in 2008 with the Russian-Georgian war going into Ukraine and other troubled regions around the area. So is there any sense that having such a link would bring about cooperation, or it might in another sense embolden belligerence and different forms of behavior? And about the same time, I have a quick commentary on the methodology and the sort of limitations I encounter in the process of carrying out this work. I use a case study methodology, which obviously has got some good aspects and it's got its own challenges. And I look at the key limitations that I kind of encounter is that to a very large extent, though both appear to be basic pipelines infrastructure, but there's a great deal of differences in terms of how they can be compared and very few similarities. So it makes it somewhat challenging to be able to come up with a very comprehensive analytical basis and to draw useful policy conclusions. So I'm quite conscious of that. And secondly, given that there's been a very long history of Russian gas infrastructure connections with the European mainland, practically there is very limited I think, very limited forms of gas infrastructure between Russia and the East Asian market, or particularly, the Asian market. And so the power of Siberia apparently is by far the biggest, the first, and the most challenging project of its kind between Russia and China. And you'd wonder why choosing these two projects. Well, the whole rationale behind the power of Siberia, as President Putin once put it, is to give an opportunity to be able to, for Russian gas market to have diversification options. So depending on market situations, you can switch it to either Europe or switch it to China on the Asian market. So the Russian Gazprom becomes like the central hub connecting both sides. And there isn't much work on the part of Siberia. You'd have to dig in to Russian sources, and most of them by far are really in the early stages and mostly formal official reports from Gazprom and some state Russian government reports, which don't necessarily represent, can be presented as very independent and credible sources of information about a project of this magnitude. So it's just the early stages. So I'm plunging myself into a very deep ocean, and I'm not sure how I might be able to swim out of it. But that's the challenge with the power of Siberia that I'm currently trying to deal with in this area. And I'll look at it next. Yes, and the core of this research is, if you look at the basis upon which to look at it, there's an energy security paradox. On the one hand, you've got Europe's need for security of supply. And on the other hand, you've got the Russian need for security of demand. And for much of the literature, there's emphasis on security of supply. And there isn't much about security of demand, especially from the Russian perspective. Why do we bring up issues of security, questions of security of supply? As early as 2010, as far back as 2010, there were issues about supply disruptions in Ukraine. Conflict, gas contract disagreement between Ukraine and Russia resulted in supply disruptions to mainland Europe. So questions are being asked, can we ever trust Russia to deliver its supplies to the European markets? If Europe continues to be dependent on Russia, which appears to be a very unstable supplier. And on the other hand, Russia sees attempts by some within the European Union that are not too keen to have Russian natural gas linked to the infrastructure basis of Europe, resisting it. Then concerns are being raised in Russia about whether or not they will be assured of the European market. And you have to, all of this comes to the background that up until now, Europe has been the traditional and sole principal market of the Russian gas industry. So Russia needs Europe, the European gas market, as much as Europe needs a little bit of Russia's. And as I said, which relates to the second point about concerns about Russia's capacity
David, may I suggest to speed up your presentation and deliver the core finding in 3 minutes?
Okay.
I would suggest.
Okay, yes. Then I'll just speed up towards this. I just have diagrams and sketches here about the structure of the projects, the pipelines running through how they feature here. And go to this. Yeah, so I'll just get to the key findings in here. For critics of Gazprom's goal of getting rid of Russia's primary goal is actually to have direct access to the European market by bypassing transit states like Ukraine, Poland, and others, so you can have direct links. And some are concerned that it's an attempt for Russia to be able to bully its way through and have a stranglehold on it. And there's another link on the power of Siberia, which is based on Russia's desire to diversify its gas infrastructure. And the evidence proves that Russia may not necessarily be very successful at that because it's just an interim, just in its early stages. And besides, Russia has been keen to emphasize commercial interest above political interest when it involves its energy infrastructure. And whilst the Nord Stream 2 appears to be very commercially oriented, the power of Siberia doesn't appear to be a commercial venture. The Russian state argues as it's a long-term project, but critics think that it's just a big vanity giant project. And and the conclusion have been that the best way to understand the Russian energy infrastructure network is through a Hobbesian worldview, where the Russian state believes in power and its ability to project and control. But that doesn't necessarily always reflect on the ground, as the power of Siberia seems to indicate. And is there an economic case for directly linking producers and consumers on both sides? I think, yes, that's a very important part. It's important to place emphasis on the economics, and that's very clear in this instance. And finally, the key point I found in here is that the infrastructure project, for whatever case on both sides, has no real impact on the political behavior of Russia. Thank you very much.
Okay, thank you, David. Indeed, these two pipelines are Russia's major pipeline. One is going to China, and the other, the Nord Stream 2, is heading toward Germany. Actually, the Nord Stream 2 in recent years have faced the big geopolitical challenges, especially the objection from the United States. So it's being halted at the 92% kind of the completion rate. But indeed, it will be it is certainly an interesting contrast between these two projects from Russia's the political and geopolitical behavior. Okay, so we will. I will finish 3 presentations first, and then I will open the discussion flow. I think that will be the better to allocate the sufficient time for presenter first, and we will have some flexibility in managing Q&As. Okay, so